Stoics, throughout their long and meaningful lives, mastered the art of human observation and understanding. They believe that the body holds profound clues about one's character, emotions, and desires, and this includes women's bodies. By paying close attention to subtle details, we can uncover surprising psychological facts that might challenge common assumptions. In today's episode, we're diving into the psychology behind certain physical traits, focusing specifically on women's bodies and exploring how they might reveal hidden truths. Before we jump into this fascinating topic, remember to watch this video till the end. If you enjoy content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below with your thoughts or personal experiences. Let's get into the 7 chapters that will surely shock you. Chapter 1. The significance of a small nose. Have you ever noticed how some women with smaller noses seem to carry certain distinctive traits? While it might sound peculiar, there's been a long-standing belief that the size of a woman's nose could be linked to other characteristics of her body, particularly her intimate anatomy, commonly referred to as her six, throughout history. And even in certain modern psychological theories, this idea has persisted, sparking curiosity about whether there's any truth to it. The Stoic, keen observers of both human behavior and biology would likely have recognized the nose as more than just a facial feature to them. It might have represented a gateway to understanding a person's overall health, vitality, and even personality traits. From an evolutionary standpoint, a smaller nose has often been considered a feminine trait. Society tends to associate smaller noses with a sense of delicacy or fragility, which in turn raises questions about what this might suggest regarding a woman's intimate anatomy. While the connection between nose size and body features might not have a firm scientific backing, it's deeply rooted in cultural perceptions. Many people believe that a smaller nose may reflect a smaller, more refined, intimate area, aligning with the broader idea that a smaller physical frame or feature is often associated with refinement or subtlety. This concept can be traced back to ancient beliefs where various facial and bodily traits were thought to reveal deeper truths about a person's body and even their sexual nature. There's a certain psychological comfort in making these kinds of assumptions. Humans have always been driven by the need to categorize and make sense of the world around them. This extends to how we interpret physical traits, especially when it comes to attraction and sexuality. A small nose might seem like an insignificant detail, but for centuries it's been regarded as a marker of femininity, suggesting a woman's overall softness, elegance, and in some cases, the size of her intimate anatomy. It's worth noting that this belief varies across cultures. In some societies, a small nose has been highly prized, linked to notions of beauty and refinement. Women with smaller noses were often seen as having delicate, almost ethereal qualities which extended to other parts of their bodies. In these cultures, the nose became a symbol of grace, and people believed that it could provide insights into a woman's overall physical traits, including her intimate areas. However, we must remember that no two women are the same, and while these kinds of physical correlations might appeal to our sense of order and predictability, they don't always hold true. Stoic philosophy emphasizes the importance of observing without jumping to conclusions. Just because a woman has a small nose doesn't mean her body will fit neatly into a predetermined category. The human body in all its variety is full of surprises. In many ways, this belief about nose size and intimate anatomy might be more of a reflection of cultural norms and psychological tendencies rather than a concrete truth. From a psychological standpoint, the belief in these physical correlations might also stem from a desire to find patterns in the seemingly unpredictable world of attraction and human relationships. People often look for small details to help them navigate the complexities of physical and emotional connections. A small nose, while just one aspect of a person's appearance, can become a focal point for assumptions about the person's overall body and sexuality. But the Stoics would caution against putting too much stock in such assumptions. While these beliefs might provide an interesting framework, they shouldn't be taken as fact. Moreover, the association of a small nose with refinement and femininity has been amplified by media and cultural standards of beauty. In modern times, a small button-like nose is often seen as an ideal. Particularly in Western cultures, this perception reinforces the idea that a small nose equals a delicate feminine appearance, and by extension, a delicate, small, intimate anatomy. However, as the Stoics might remind us, beauty standards are fluid and subjective. What one culture values in terms of physical traits, another might see as unremarkable. It's also interesting to consider how the nose fits into the larger picture of facial symmetry and overall attractiveness. Psychological studies have long suggested that symmetry in the face plays a key role in how we perceive beauty. A smaller nose can contribute to that symmetry, enhancing the perception of attractiveness, and for some, even hinting at refined physical features elsewhere. But again, this is only one small piece of a much larger puzzle. While some people might continue to believe in the connection between a small nose and a woman's intimate areas, it's important to approach these beliefs with a degree of skepticism and nuance. The human body is far too complex to be fully understood through physical traits alone. Every woman is unique, and while cultural and psychological factors might lead us to draw connections between certain features, the Stoic would urge us to look deeper, beyond surface-level assumptions. In conclusion, while the size of a woman's nose might spark curiosity and serve as a point of discussion, it's just one part of her overall essence. The notion that a smaller nose indicates a more refined, intimate anatomy is rooted in both cultural beliefs and psychological tendencies, but as with all things, it's essential to approach this topic with an open mind and an understanding that no single physical trait can define a person's entire being. Each woman with her unique features offers far more than what we can deduce from a single characteristic, like the size of her nose. Chapter 2. The meaning behind delicate hands throughout history. Delicate hands in women have often been associated with elegance, grace, and refinement. Women with small more delicate hands are frequently seen as embodying a sense of gentleness and femininity that goes beyond physical appearance, but some also believe that smaller, more delicate hands might be indicators of certain traits in other areas of the body, particularly in their intimate anatomy. While not backed by science, this idea continues to hold sway in various cultural beliefs and psychological folklore, reflecting humanity's ongoing fascination with the connection between different physical features. The Stoics, known for their ability to observe the natural world and human behavior, would likely have viewed hands not just as physical traits, but as symbols of one's interaction with life. Hands are the instruments through which we act upon the world, shape our environment, and express ourselves from a Stoic perspective. Smaller, more delicate hands might reflect a more subtle control, old approach to life, perhaps a sign of careful restraint or mindfulness. But when it comes to interpreting body features, some have suggested that smaller hands could hint at more petite or refined body characteristics overall, including a smaller six. This belief is rooted in the broader notion that smaller physical traits in one area of the body tend to correspond with similarly refined or delicate traits elsewhere. However, it's essential to approach these ideas with a sense of balance and caution. Physical traits, like hand size, are just one small piece of the puzzle that makes up an individual, while people are often tempted to draw connections between different aspects of a person's appearance. Every woman is unique, and her hands may tell one story, while other parts of her body tell another. It's crucial to avoid overgeneralizing or making assumptions based solely on appearance. be beyond physical traits. Hands can also reveal a lot about a person's personality and temperament. Women with delicate hands might project a sense of gentility and reserve, but that doesn't necessarily mean they are timid or passive. Hands are also powerful tools of expression, communicating everything from assertiveness to sensuality through subtle gestures. Whether a woman is more hands-on and active or prefers a softer, more reserved approach to life, her hands are often the first to reveal her true nature. For a woman who hasn't experienced physical intimacy in a long time, her delicate hands might carry additional symbolic meaning. They may represent the restraint and control she's practiced over time, a sign of the careful boundaries she's maintained. Her hands may show the tension between desire and caution, between longing for connection and the need to maintain her personal space. Pay attention to how she uses her hands in your interactions. Whether she's more open and expressive or keeps them close to her body may give you insight into her comfort level and her emotional state. At the same time, be mindful of the small, often unnoticed ways that hands can communicate a woman's desires or hesitations. A slight touch on your arm, a brush of her fingers against yours, or even the way she holds an object can reveal much more than words ever could. In some cases, a woman might unconsciously express her attraction or interest through these small, delicate gestures. The Stoics would remind us to be observant, but not to jump to conclusions. Hands, like any other physical feature, are a window into the soul, but they are not the whole story. A woman's delicate hands may indicate many things, from her physical makeup to her emotional world. But the key is to observe without making assumptions. Let her actions and words guide you, and remain attuned to the nuances of her body language with patience and attentiveness. You can uncover the deeper layers of who she is, far beyond the surface-level traits that first catch your eye. In the end, delicate hands are just one part of the broader, more complex picture that makes up a woman's essence. While they may reveal subtle clues about her body or her inner self, it's essential to approach with sensitivity and understanding. Every woman is unique, and her hands, like her heart, will tell their story in their own time and in their own way. Chapter 3, Gap Teeth and Their Implications. There's something undeniably striking about a woman with gap teeth. While this distinct physical trait might seem like an unusual focal point for understanding other parts of the body, cultural beliefs and folklore have long associated gap teeth with certain intimate traits. Specifically, there has been a belief persisting from ancient times into the present that women with gap teeth often have smaller 6 areas, making this a topic of intrigue in many discussions about feminine features and body language. From a Stoic perspective, which values observation and reflection, every aspect of the human body can be seen as a potential reflection of one's inner self. The Stoics would have been curious about how gap teeth might fit into the broader narrative of understanding human characteristics. While they may not have endorsed the belief that gap teeth directly correlate to intimate anatomy, they would have appreciated the human instinct to find meaning in small details and seemingly unrelated traits for them. Gap teeth would have simply been another facet of a person's uniqueness, not necessarily tied to physical traits elsewhere. So why have gap teeth been linked to smaller, intimate areas? This belief may stem from a broader cultural fascination with symmetry and proportion. In many societies, a perfectly aligned smile has been associated with conventional beauty. Gap teeth disrupt this typical alignment, creating a kind of imbalance that might lead some to speculate about others, misalign or unique qualities in the body, including intimate anatomy. In this context, the idea of small is often associated with neatness, refinement, and control qualities, historically linked with femininity and attraction. From a psychological standpoint, gap teeth can evoke a sense of intrigue and fascination. It's a rare trait, and human nature often leads us to be drawn to what is unusual or unique. When encountering someone with gap teeth, the mind may begin to wonder if other parts of their body are similarly unique or possess uncommon characteristics for some. This intrigue extends to the belief that a woman with gap teeth might also have more delicate, smaller, intimate anatomy. This idea of connection between physical traits is rooted more in cultural mythology and psychological associations than in any scientific fact. Still, it highlights how human beings have long sought to draw connections between different physical attributes, trying to find patterns in the body. The Stoics, however, would remind us that while it's natural to look for meaning in these small details, we should avoid allowing assumption to cloud our judgment. Every woman, regardless of whether she has gap teeth, is unique in her own right and should be appreciated. For her individuality in today's society, gap teeth have become a symbol of individuality and charm, embraced by many as part of their natural beauty. Women with gap teeth often flaunt them proudly, seeing them not as imperfections, but as defining features of their appearance. The idea that gap teeth might suggest anything about intimate anatomy seems less relevant in modern discussions where physical diversity is celebrated and where individuality is valued over conformity. Despite its roots in cultural curiosity, the belief that gap teeth correlate with smaller, intimate areas continues to capture the imagination of some, but it's important to remember that this connection is a product of myth and speculation rather than any scientific truth. What gap teeth truly symbolize today is individuality and confidence traits that transcend physical appearance and speak to a woman's overall sense of self. At the end of a day, the supposed link between gap teeth and intimate anatomy remains an intriguing cultural idea. One of the many ways humans try to make sense of the body through its outward features, while it's easy to be fascinated by these associations. It's also essential to remember that the human body and the people it belongs to cannot be defined by any single trait, just as a woman's smile, whether with gap teeth or not, tells only part of her story. So to do these beliefs offer just a small glimpse into our complex perceptions of femininity and sexuality. Chapter 4. The impact of cheek structure when it comes to the structure of a woman's cheeks. Cultural beliefs have long suggested that women with fuller, rounder cheeks tend to have smaller 6 areas. This idea, like many other body-related myths, has persisted through the ages, with people believing that certain facial features can offer insight into more intimate parts of the body in various cultures. These associations continue to influence perceptions of femininity, beauty, and even sexuality. Despite the lack of scientific backing, the Stoics, always keen to explore the relationships between body and mind, might have observed this connection with interest, for the physical traits were not just markers of attractiveness, but symbols of a person's overall health and vitality. Fuller cheeks in particular have been associated with a youthful, fertile appearance. By extension, the idea that such women might have smaller, more refined, intimate anatomy has taken root in popular belief. While this is certainly an oversimplification, it speaks to the deep-seated human desire to find meaning in physical features and to use these traits as indicators of other aspects of a person's being. There's no scientific basis for this correlation, but it reflects a larger psychological tendency to link physical features with certain ideals of femininity. Fuller cheeks give the impression of softness, which might translate into assumptions about a woman's intimate area being equally delicate or small. This idea is not limited to modern times. Historically, such beliefs have shaped everything, from the idealized depictions of women in art and sculpture to societal expectations of beauty. The cultural belief that bigger cheeks mean smaller 6 is yet another example of how people use physical traits to draw broader conclusions about the body, often without any real evidence to support those conclusions. This belief also plays into society's ongoing fascination with symmetry and proportion. Fuller cheeks suggest a well-rounded, balanced face, and many assume that this balance might extend to the rest of the body. Women with larger cheeks might be seen as having a more compact, refined, intimate area. Simply because we're wired to see balance in nature, symmetry has long been associated with beauty. And this subconscious association between facial structure and body composition continues to influence how people perceive one another, especially when it comes to attractiveness and femininity. While these ideas are so certainly intriguing, it's important to remember that every woman's body is unique. Just because a woman has fuller cheeks doesn't mean that her intimate anatomy will follow a particular pattern. The Stoics would remind us to observe without judgment, recognizing that beauty comes in many forms, and that physical traits can only tell part of the story. They would likely argue that such beliefs are distractions from the more meaningful aspects of human connection, intellect, virtue, and character. After all, the Stoic approach to life emphasizes inequalities over external appearances. Psychologically, the link between fuller cheeks and smaller, intimate areas might also stem from deeper societal norms. We've been conditioned to associate certain body shapes and facial features with specific characteristics. In this case, fuller cheeks are seen as soft, feminine, and controlled, leading to the assumption that these women have similarly refined features. Elsewhere on their bodies, these cultural assumptions often go unnoticed, yet they subtly shape our perceptions and expectations, influencing everything from dating preferences to self-esteem. Ultimately, the belief that fuller cheeks indicate a smaller, intimate area is more of a cultural fascination than a scientific truth. But like many body-related myths, it continues to shape our understanding of beauty, femininity, and sexuality in subtle ways. Whether or not there's any validity to this idea, it offers an interesting glimpse into how we interpret the human body. This cultural lens highlights the ways in which physical appearance is intertwined with societal values, and how these values continue to influence our thoughts, behaviors, and ideals of what makes someone attractive or desirable. Chapter 5. Slim Women and Body Composition 1. One of the most pervasive beliefs about women's bodies is that slim women tend to have smaller 60 areas. This idea, rooted in both cultural and psychological factors, suggests that a woman's overall body composition can give insight into her intimate anatomy, specifically the belief that slim women, with their lean frames and more compact figures, might also have smaller, more refined intimate areas, has persisted through time. The Stoics, always mindful of the relationship between the body and the mind, would have been curious about this belief. For them, physical traits were seen as indicators of overall health balance and harmony. A slim woman's body, often associated with control and restraint, might lead to the assumption that other aspects of her physical anatomy are similarly compact and refined. Culturally, the idea that slim women have smaller, intimate areas plays into broader societal norms about femininity and attraction. Slimness has long been associated with youth, vitality, and beauty, and many people assume that these traits extend to intimate anatomy. The leaner the frame, the smaller the intimate area. This belief continues to shape how we perceive women's bodies psychologically. This belief may also stem from our natural inclination to look for patterns and connections. A slim woman's body might be viewed as an example of EIC's eye and compactness, leading to the assumption that her intimate anatomy is similar. Structured, the association between slimness and refinement extends beyond aesthetics and into how we think about intimate features. However, it's important to approach this belief with a degree of skepticism. While it might be tempting to make assumptions about a woman's intimate anatomy based on her overall body composition, the reality is far more complex. Every woman body is unique, and slimness does not necessarily correlate with smaller, intimate areas. In modern times, the cultural emphasis on slimness has been magnified by media and beauty standards. Slim women are often portrayed as the epitome of femininity, and this portrayal reinforces the belief that slim women are refined in every aspect, including their intimate anatomy. But as the Stoics would remind us, outward appearances can only tell part of the story. In the end, the idea that slim women have smaller, intimate areas is more of a cultural assumption than a scientific truth. While it may offer an interesting perspective on body composition, it's essential to remember that every woman is unique, and no single physical trait can define her overall essence or intimate anatomy. Chapter 6: Breast Size and Body Characteristics in the World of Body-Related Myths. One of the most frequently discussed topics is the relationship between breast size and other intimate aspects of a woman's body. Specifically, when a woman has small breasts, there's often a belief that she might also have a leaner, more compact frame, and this extends to assumptions about her intimate anatomy as well. A particularly common belief is that women with small breasts may also have smaller, tighter vaginas. While this concept has been passed down through generations, as it remains more culture lore than scientific fact. Stoic philosophers who valued observation and self-control might have approached this belief with a sense of curiosity but also caution. To the Stoics, the human body was a physical vessel, and while one's outer appearance could offer clues to one's health or habits, they would not have relied heavily on such assumptions. They would argue that true understanding of a person physically, emotionally, and spiritually comes from deeper interactions and observations, rather than superficial traits like breast size. For them, focusing on external characteristics as a way to draw conclusions about intimate areas would miss the point of seeking a person's inequalities and virtues. Nevertheless, the belief that smaller breasts might indicate a more compact, intimate anatomy persists. This idea is likely linked to society standards that associate small breasts with slimness, youth, and more refined physique overall. Because women with small breasts often have leaner body frames, people extend this assumption to other areas of the body, including the intimate ones. In particular, there's a persistent idea that a woman with smaller breasts will have a tighter or more refined vagina, as if body proportions must follow a consistent, predictable pattern from a psychological perspective. This belief might be rooted in the human tendency to connect body parts to form a cohesive image. Small breasts are often seen as a sign of femininity, but in a subtler, more understated way. In the same vein, a smaller, more delicate vagina is considered a reflection of that subtle femininity. The cultural fixation on size extends beyond breasts and into how people view women's intimate and anatomy. These connections are not based in science, but rather in deep-seated cultural ideals about what it means to be feminine, and they persist because they align with long-standing stereotypes about women's bodies. One of the reasons this belief has endured is that society often equates larger body parts, whether breasts, hips, or thighs, with fertility and sensuality. While smaller body parts are seen as refined and controlled, women with small breasts are frequently viewed as more reserved or less overtly sexual, which leads to the assumption that their intimate anatomy is similarly comp or restrained. This stereotype, however, doesn't necessarily hold up under scrutiny, as every woman's body is uniquely her own. No amount of external observation can accurately predict the specifics of someone's intimate features, and this is an area where myths tend to take precedence over reality. It's also worth noting how fashion and beauty standards have influenced these perceptions throughout history. Different eras have favored different body types. In times when larger, curvier figures were in vogue, women with small breasts were often seen as lacking in femininity. In more modern times, where slim, lean figures are idealized, small-breasted women are celebrated for their grace and elegance. But no matter the era, the association between small breasts and smaller intimate anatomy remains a common assumption. The fashion industry, media, and even social circles all play a part in reinforcing these ideas. Even when there's no base is for them at the end of a day, the Stoic approach would remind us that we cannot fully understand someone's character or physicality based solely on outward traits like breast size. While these beliefs may persist, they don't reflect the complexity of the human body. A woman with small breasts is no less feminine, sensual, or vital than one with a larger chest. These physical traits, though often the focus of attention, are just one aspect of who she is. The Stoics would encourage a mindset of detachment from such superficial judgments, urging us to appreciate the full spectrum of human beauty without placing undue importance on isolated features. This brings us to the core message. While society often draws connections between breast size and other intimate features, these assumptions are built more on cultural preferences than any inherent truths. The Stoics would encourage us to rise above such superficial judgments and recognize that a woman's true essence cannot be fully understood by merely focusing on her physical form. Each person's body is a complex and individual expression of their unique life, and reducing it to mere stereotypes diminishes the depth of who they are. Chapter 7. Understanding the B-leg and its correlation in the ongoing search to make sense of the human body. Another feature that has drawn considerable attention is the so-called bleed structure. This term refers to the specific shape and alignment of a woman's legs, where there's a subtle outward curve, creating a B shape when viewed from the front or side. While not widely discussed, those who adhere to body philosophers who valued observation and self-control might have approached this belief with a sense of curiosity, but also caution. To the Stoics, the human body was a physical vessel, and while one's outer appearance could offer clues to one's health or habits, they would not have relied heavily on such assumptions. They would argue that true understanding of a person physically, emotionally, and spiritually comes from deeper interactions and observations rather than superficial traits like breast size. For them, focusing on external characteristics as a way to draw conclusions about intimate areas would miss the point of seeking a person's inequalities and virtues. Nevertheless, the belief that smaller breasts might indicate a more compact, intimate anatomy persists. This idea is likely linked to society standards that associate small breasts with slimness, youth, and more refined physique overall. Because women with small breasts often have leaner body frames, people extend this assumption to other areas of the body, including the intimate ones. In particular, there's a persistent idea that a woman with smaller breasts will have a tighter or more refined vagina, as if body proportions must follow a consistent, predictable pattern from a psychological perspective. This belief might be rooted in the human tendency to connect body parts to form a cohesive image. Small breasts are often seen as a sign of femininity, but in a subtler, more understated way. In the same vein, a smaller, more delicate vagina is considered a reflection of that subtle femininity. The cultural fixation on size extends beyond breasts and into how people view women's intimate. And at Atomy, these connections are not based in science, but rather in deep-seated cultural ideals about what it means to be feminine, and they persist because they align with long-standing stereotypes about women's bodies. One of the reasons this belief has endured is that society often equates larger body parts, whether breasts, hips, or thighs, with fertility and sensuality, while smaller body parts are seen as refined and controlled. Women with small breasts are frequently viewed as more reserved or less overtly sexual, which leads to the assumption that their intimate anatomy is similarly or restrained. This stereotype, however, doesn't necessarily hold up under scrutiny, as every woman's body is uniquely her own. No amount of external observation can accurately predict the specifics of someone's intimate features, and this is an area where myths tend to take precedence over reality. It's also worth noting how fashion and beauty standards have influenced these perceptions throughout history. Different eras have favored different body types in times when larger, curvier figures were in vogue. Women with small breasts were often seen as lacking in femininity in more modern times where slim, lean figures are idealized. Small-breasted women are celebrated for their grace and elegance, but no matter the era, the association between small breasts and smaller intimate anatomy remains a common assumption. The fashion industry, media, and even social circles all play a part in reinforcing these ideas, even when there's no base is for them. At the end of a day, the Stoic approach would remind us that we cannot fully understand someone's character or physicality based solely on outward traits like breast size. While these beliefs may persist, they don't reflect the complexity of the human body. A woman with small breasts is no less feminine, sensual, or vital than one with a larger chest. These physical traits, though often the focus of attention, are just one aspect of who she is. The Stoics would encourage a mindset of detachment from such superficial judgments, urging us to appreciate the full spectrum of human beauty without placing undue importance on isolated features. This brings us to the core message. While society often draws connections between breast size and other intimate features, these assumptions are built more on cultural preferences than any inherent truths. The Stoics would encourage us to rise above such superficial judgments and recognize that a woman's true essence cannot be fully understood by merely focusing on her physical form. Each person's body is a complex and individual expression of their unique life, and reducing it to mere stereotypes diminishes the depth of who they are. Chapter 7. Understanding the B-leg and its correlation in the ongoing search to make sense of the human body. Another feature that has drawn considerable attention is the so-called bleed structure. This term refers to the specific shape and alignment of a woman's legs, where there's a subtle outward curve creating a B shape when viewed from the front or side. While not widely discussed, those who adhere to body-related myths suggest that women with this leg structure tend to have smaller sex or intimate areas, much like other physical traits discussed in previous chapters. The Stoics, ever observant and detail-oriented, would likely have been fascinated by such notions. They believed that the body could offer clues to a person's inner state, but they also cautioned against making surface-level judgments. In the case of the BLE, the Stoics would probably acknowledge that while this might be an interesting feature, it's not necessarily an indication of deeper truths about a woman's body or in intimate anatomy. However, the idea that a woman with B-leg might have a smaller, intimate area stems from the same psychological tendencies that drive other body-related beliefs, just as people look to small noses, gap teeth, or slim figures as indicators of a woman's physical characteristics. The B-leg structure has become another point of focus. This belief plays into broader societal ideas about symmetry, proportion, and balance. A woman with B legs, which suggests a certain refinement and delicacy in a lower body, is thought to have a similarly refined intimate area. While this belief may be more rooted in cultural preferences than in biology, it reflects our deep-seated desire to find patterns in the human form. We like to think that certain features, like a woman's legs, can reveal broader truths about her entire body. The B-leg, with its elegant curvature, becomes a symbol of feminine refinement, and this concept carries over to assumptions about intimate anatomy. There's also a psychological aspect to this belief that's worth exploring. Women with B-legs are often seen as more graceful and poised in their movement. This sense of grace is tied to the belief that their bodies are compact, controlled, and proportionate. In turn, this fuels the assumption that their intimate anatomy is similarly structured. It's important to remember, however, that these connections between leg structure and intimate anatomy are largely speculative. There's no scientific evidence to suggest that women with B legs are more likely to have smaller, intimate areas than those with different leg shapes. But like many body-related myths, the idea persists because it plays into our desire to categorize and understand the human body in simple visual ways. From a Stoic perspective, it would be wiser to focus on the overall health, strength, and vitality of the body rather than getting caught up in narrow physical traits like the B leg. While it's tempting to draw conclusions from these visible markers, they do not tell the full story of a woman's body or her intimate areas. Ultimately, the connection between B legs and smaller intimate anatomy is another example of how we try to make sense of the human form through patterns and physical clues. While the idea may be intriguing, it's essential to approach such beliefs with a critical eye and remember that every woman body is unique and cannot be reduced to simplistic formulas or assumptions. The Stoics would remind us that true understanding comes from looking beyond appearances and recognizing the deeper, complex complexities of the human experience. As we come to the end of this episode, it's clear that the human body and women's bodies in particular carry a wealth of meaning, both in terms of how we view them and how we interpret various physical traits, from small noses to breasts, size, leg structure, and everything in between. Society has long tried to draw connections between external characteristics and intimate anatomy. But as we've explored these beliefs, it's important to recognize that these connections are often based on cultural assumptions, not scientific truths. The Stoics, with their deep understanding of human nature and behavior, would remind us to observe carefully, but never to judge too quickly. They believe that true wisdom comes from understanding the whole, not just the parts of woman's body, is complex and multifaceted, and every trait, whether large or small, is part of a broader narrative of who she is. As tempting as it is to reduce someone to a set of physical features or myths, we must remember that every woman is unique, and no amount of analysis can capture the full depth of her personhood. The beliefs and B-related myths we discuss today may be fascinating, but they're not the ultimate truths. Instead, they serve as reminders of our shared human tendency to seek patterns and meaning where sometimes none exist. So what can we take from all of this? A deeper appreciation for the individuality of women's bodies, and a reminder to approach such topics with both curiosity and respect. Whether a woman has small breasts, gap teeth, beags, or any other distinguishing feature, these are just parts of her physical form, not the entirety of who she is. The Stoics would tell us to focus on what lies beneath the surface, to value character and inner strength. Above all else, as we conclude, I encourage you to think critically about the ideas we discussed today. Remember to observe, but also to question. Look beyond superficial traits and appreciate the full complexity of the women in your life. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. If you have any personal stories or insights related to this topic, we'd love to hear them. Let's keep the conversation going, because understanding the human body both inside and out is a journey that never ends. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves and those around you.